All right, let's continue by outputting the results. Now, before I work on this problem we started right here, let's just review some of the basics. So you're familiar with the print command. We've been using that for quite a while. And nothing new here. Hello world. We're all familiar with the good old classic. Let's modify this to something a little bit different so that we can play with it a bit more. Let's change this to, this is Homer's sandwich. Okay. Still nothing quite different here, but let's learn the difference between printing out hard-coded text versus a variable. So I'm going to make a variable called sentence. I'm going to change the sentence to, or set it equal to, that sentence we just created, and use the print now on sentence. This is usually a more common way to print. We're going to print variables, sometimes variables together with some text. For example, what if we wanted Homer's to be dynamic? So that's where we're going to learn how to use what are called f-strings. F-strings can make this very useful and easy to print out dynamic results. So let's stick with our example here. And let's create the name of Homer once again. And this time I want to print Homer's name in the sentence here. So let's print out, all right, this is, and before what we learned was to concatenate this way. This is plus name plus sandwich. Now this works out just fine. This is, oops, except I probably want to use the apostrophe S. All right, this is Homer's sandwich. For something simple, like a word that just needs to go in the middle of the sentence, we can just concatenate a string in there with everything else. Sometimes, however, it's going to get more complicated, and continually concatenating strings, and especially if we want to start to format the strings a bit more, as you'll learn about in a bit here, this can get a bit more difficult. So we're going to start using what's called the f-string class, which is available in Python 3. So it's similar, we're going to print, but in this case we're going to start with the key letter F, followed by quotes, double or single, doesn't matter. Notice as soon as we do that, F changes to blue, because the Python interpreter recognizes now that this is going to be an F string. So I'm going to type in this is, and instead of concatenating a string, I'm going to open and close curly braces, sandwich. Okay. So these curly braces indicate that there's going to be a variable here, or some dynamic data. However, the rest of it's going to continue. Now, I'm actually going to need to use, as we'll learn here a little bit later on, I'm going to use double quotes here, because that single quote right there on Homer's is ending the sentence prematurely. So I'll use double quotes, and that way the single quote will be recognized as a single quote. So right here, all we need to do is use the keyword name. Or use the variable that we created above that exists from this cell right here. So we can plug in any variable name, and that's going to work just the same. Now the advantage of this is it allows us to start, see how much simpler this is than adding the plus signs in. This may not seem complicated to you, but having programmed for a while in languages where I've got to do massive string concatenation, it can be easy to make mistakes and to have typos and to not see where you're missing a plus sign. And having to constantly, and now we've also got to add extra double quotes in to end this part of the string, continue on with the variable, start another string. It gets messy. This is a much cleaner way to do it. So let's make a couple of names here. Let's have name, I'll make this even simpler. N1 equals Homer again this time, N2 equals Marge. So let's put both of them together in a sentence. We're going to print out F. And we're going to say, all right, I'm going to pause right here. I want you to print a simple statement that says, Homer and Marge are married, using the f-string format that I used right here. Pause the video, see if you can do that. So just the sentence should print out, Homer and Marge are married, but I want you to use those variables and use this f-string format. Okay, I'm going to assume you've given a shot and you're either successful or not. It's pretty straightforward. I come in here and I say N1 space and N2 space after it, married, or are married. So notice, I still need to use my spaces the curly braces don't add spaces in. And I can use this in place in the sentence where it goes. Still really pretty straightforward. Well, now let's do this with some math instead. So let's create a couple of numbers, a equals 5, b equals 3, and let's print out the sum of those two, f string. Let's just simply say if you multiply a by b, you get a times b and not a plus b. All right, what's the point I'm trying to make here? Notice that a and b are numbers. We didn't have to cast them as numbers because we weren't using this input to get them. This input casts all numbers to strings. Here we just simply typed in a 5 and a 3, and so a and b it recognizes as integers. And so right here, we didn't have to change the integers to strings like we did in the previous chapter. One of the other advantages is that if we were trying to concatenate a number into a sentence, with this old format with the plus signs, we had to cast that number to a string first before we could do it. With the f-string format, notice we don't have to cast them. So you watch this if I do it the other way. Print. If you maybe I should spell multiply properly. Multiply. All right, now I got to put in a plus a. Then I got to put in by, and then plus again, b. Let's stick with our single quotes. You get, here we go again, a times b, but to do that, I better put parentheses around it just in case, order of operations and all that. A plus b and not, here we go again. A plus b. Okay, and then close the print statement. I like how Cloud does this. See how it highlights that parenthesis? And then it highlights this one over here so I can see that they're matching up. All right, so here's the same thing done in our old concatenating format, and it's going to give us an error because it says, hey, must be a string, not an int. I can't concatenate an int to a string. I have to concatenate a string to a string. So I have to come in here and cast each one of these numbers individually to a string, like we had to do before. That'll work. Oops. All right. Now it works. These two lines are equivalent, but clearly the f-string line is much simpler. So this will be a better format for us to use from here on out. I'm going to get rid of this one, and well, no, I'll leave it in there just so you can remember. All right, let's take this a step further. Let's do some number formatting while we're in here. Let's say, for example, we've got a score on an exam. My score equals 89. Then we have a class average score. And naturally, because you're brilliant, you did better than the class average. There we go. Yeah, there's our class average. Let's print the class average and just see what this looks like. Okay, perfect, just like we put it in there. Now let's print out a sentence that says my score was 89. The class average was 75.111111. Go ahead and give me that statement right now, right here. Pause the video, write it on your own. So I want you to write a sentence that says my score was, give me the score, period, the class average was, and then give me the class average. All right, I'm going to assume you've paused it and tried it. I'm going to go ahead and use my f-string format. My score was, my score, the class average was, class average. Okay. Period. All right. Now, looking at that, I might decide, you know, I really don't want 5 ones. I get that it's one repeating. Let's just round it off. to 2 decimal places. How do I do that? Well, there's a variety of methods for string formatting in Python. And the way we do this, we always have a variable name. And I'll show you that there's a standard for this. We have a variable name or some sort of expression. That's a better term for it. An expression that produces a value. Right after it, we put a colon. Always a colon. Then we have a series of numbers, dots, and F. Whoops, dot and F. Let me show you what this does, and then I'll talk you through it. Oh, maybe I should spell class properly too. There we go. All right, my score was 89. The class average was 75.1. What does this do? All right, the colon says we're going to have formatting here after this expression. Each one of these numbers, dots, and F has meaning here. And in this case, 0 is how much padding do you want to have added. We don't want to add any padding around this. Dot 1 is how many decimal places right here we want to round to. And then F is what format we want to use. And there's a bunch of different letter codes. In this case, the format's very simple. No %sign, no anything else, just 1 decimal place. And it's going to be a float. That's what the F's. Well, I'll show you here in a sec. So this formatting is super useful. Let me give you one more example, and then let me show you the definition of all the different possibilities here for formatting codes. So let's make this a %. So let's turn my score into a %. Let's say my % equals point, because you're awesome, it's going to be 0.93884876. Why not? All right, so that's your score. To get that into a %, we want to multiply that by 100. All right, so let's print my % just to see what that looks like. Okay, there we go, that works. But now let's print that sentence and format it as a %. Print F, and let's say my average this semester was, and now we're going to use our special curly braces, my %, colon, now to indicate that we're going to add some formatting to that variable, my %. So in particular, let's just use what we did before, 0.1F, and then what we can do is just add a % right after. Here we go. Same thing, my average this semester was a 93.9, or we can change the decimals up to 3 or 2 or something like that. There we go, 93.88. All right, so there's lots of different options. Let me show you a list of them. I'm going to scroll or move here to the output section of the chapter. Where have I got this? Right here. Here we go. The format specification. So we have a fill, a sign, a %, or a pound sign. This digit is the fill that's going to go in. Well, I'll show fill in a second. Width, we can add padding before or after. Grouping option, precision type. I'm going to leave those alone. Type, here we go. We selected this F right here. B, these particular characters right here are the different formatting type options you have, which include the %sign. I could include that here, and instead of putting it right there, oops, let me go back here. Instead of putting it on the outside, I could actually do the same thing right here. In this case, that % automatically formats it as a %, and I wouldn't need to multiply by 100. It just takes a decimal and says, let's go ahead and multiply it by 100 for them and include a % form right after. So, I think I'll leave it like that. I like that way. So let me give you something to practice. Here's what I want you to do. Let's add some data. So let's create our sample data here. Name, Homer as usual, age equals 38. We're going to give 3 prices. Price 1 equals 5. Price 2 equals 15. Price 3 equals 25. We're going to make a total out of those, do some processing, P1 plus P2 plus P3. And then I want you to, and then I'm going to print out the way I think I want the results to look, and then I want you to fix it. So, name, current age, 3 spaces in between each one here, price 1, price 2, price 3. Okay, print. Now I'm going to do F name, age, let's see here, P1, P2, P3, and total. All right, so I go to print those things out, and I say, oh shoot, I wanted this to be kind of like a table where I had name Homer, 38, I want it centered under current age, price, I want 5, maybe lined it with numbers, or I want it formatted like currency, which means right align it next to the 1, same with these other prices, and my total. Oh, I forgot to put my total in up here. How do I get it to look like that? Well, that's where we use this format specification that I mentioned or showed you back here. So here's how it's going to work. We're first going to put in some amount of, we're going to ignore fill character for now. We want to use an alignment symbol to tell it how we want it aligned. This means left aligned, right aligned, up, or this means center aligned, and equals means fill in the blanks with some sort of character in between, like the $sign and the actual, I'm going to skip this one for now, keep things simple. Not all of these are required, and I didn't use all of them, but if you do use them, this is the order that it's going to go in. Let me show this applied for you right now, how we'd use it. So name, I want it to stay right where it is, left aligned right under name. Age, however, I want it centered under current age. So here's what I'm going to do. Colon, and the first thing I give it here is a number of spaces to use. I'm going to start with 10. All right, let me just start right there. That's the only thing I'm changing. So look at how it just moved 38 over 10 spaces. Now, because it's by default, everything is left aligned. So there's 10 spaces here, and after those 10 spaces, 38 is left aligned. However, what I could do is say in front of this, the alignment always goes before the number of spaces. Now, if I wanted to further modify it, I could use that .0f, but I'm not going to change anything else about age. I don't have to use every character of the format specification. But if I am going to indicate something other than the default alignment and something other than the default padding spacing, I have to make sure I use it in the proper order. So alignment first, then padding. So there we go. Look how age tried to center back over there, but it's centering it between here and there. See that? So how do I get it directly underneath current age? Well, there's lots of different ways. I could add a bit of spacing to name if I wanted to. In fact, sure, why not? Let's make Homer go all the way over and use up the next 2 spaces. So to do that, I'll hit colon and then 2, and I'm not going to change any alignment. All that does is, oh no, that didn't push it. Oh, because 2, it starts from the beginning of Homer. So I got 5 characters here. I actually need to go up to 7 to push it all the way over. There we go. So now this is centered between here and there. Well, I guess technically I only want it centered until just after age, so I could change this down to 9. And that would work. That's fine, either way. So 5, I want to push to be right over here. First of all, I want to format as a currency and push it over here after 1. All right, let's do that. So if 38 ends right here, I need enough characters to get me from right after current age over to the end here. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to come over here to P1 and say colon 10. And I want this right aligned. So I'll use the greater than symbol. Let's start there. Perfect. It's pushing that all the way over. I'm going to stop right here for 1 second. I want you to go ahead and fix the rest of these. Push them to go right underneath the right edge of their headers, all the way down to the end. Let me do a 2 here as well. Always better if you can do it on your own without having to watch me and see if you can figure it out. All right. Hopefully you paused, you're able to figure it out, and you have what I've got here. So don't forget, this number of padding includes the actual data itself that you're padding around. So it includes the spaces occupied by P1, which is 1 character. So it's going to add 9 spaces from here over to age. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 right there. Plus this 5 makes 10. So we've got them aligned, but we do want to format them now as dollars. So how do we do that? Well, that's where these types come in handy and these other signs and digits. There's a variety of ways that we can do this. So let's use, for starters, we want it to only be 2 decimal places. So looking at what we learned up here, this was for percent, but 1F, that gave us 2 decimals if we changed it to 2F. Well, why don't we start with that? So right here, price1 dot 2F dot 2F dot 2F dot 2F. Let's see what that does for us. Oh, okay, not bad, perfect. So remember, whatever we create or do here, this 9 characters occupies all of the space. So it's still right aligned, it didn't push anything over any further. So we're good. Now all we need is a dollar sign. Well, how should we do that? Also, a few ways that we could do that. Why don't you experiment with some of these other types? If you take a look at it and see what it does, okay, that one's not even allowed, but there's lots of other options in there. Take a look over here in this. So we've got B, C, D, E, capital E, lowercase f, capital F. These all mean different things. So you could just sit here and experiment with them until you find out one that gives you the dollar sign, but that's probably a bad idea. What you do instead is you go and you look up Python format specification for currency. You look it up and you go and you find some site like Stack Overflow. Convert float to dollars and cents. String format currency with alignment. Well, that looks promising. So you find someone who's done something similar. Right? This is in British pounds, euros? Euros, right? No, I should know better. Anyway, let's see what they've got here. And you find somebody that's basically doing what you want here. So he's doing the same thing. He's pushing over 10 characters, adding 2 decimal places. He just puts the dollar sign or the euro sign out in front of it. So somebody else here is going to, looks like they're sticking with the 2F for dollar amounts. Down here, E10. Anyway, what I end up doing is I go and I search until I find something I want that gives me a good example. In this case, I'm just going to show you. But I want you to get in this mode of when you can't find something, learning how to just go and search for what you want on Stack Overflow or Google, because there's so much Python help out there for things like this. So I'm going to come here and just let's put a dollar sign out in front. All right, that's not going to work. It starts to clear over there in currency age. So what I'm going to have to do is change my currency age to ending where I want it to end. Looks like I have to go all the way up to 12. And then I'm going to take this one down from 10 characters to 7. Almost. Take it down to 6. Oh, sorry. I'm going to change G back to F. 6. There we go. I got my currency again. It ends at the end of price 1. My dollar sign starts at the beginning over here. That's perfect. That'll work. So I'm going to apply that format here to the rest of these. 6. Nope. I'm going to have to go a little bit higher. Let's change this one to, I think I need 2 more characters or 2 more spaces. Oh, but I gotta move this thing over. Oh, you know what I can do here is we can, let's left align this guy and just push it over and then make this one a bit longer. 14. There we go. That moves it over there. And then this one, instead of 6 spaces, we'll do 4. Just about. We need to add a few. Oh, I'm doing the wrong one. Sorry, 6 I'm off one. This one needs to be 6. There we go. I'm even going to take this one up to 7. Take this one down to 5. There we go. So now I'm getting the $sign right in front of the number there. And then P3, let's add a $sign. Take that one down to 5. I'm just kind of guessing here until I get it figured out. 7. No, that's not quite what I want. 5. This one, P3. Oh, I see. I still got it. I still have that one right aligned. That's why. Let's make this one left aligned. And then I can increase the size here. 7. There we go. So by left aligning it and then adding more spaces after it, push that one over. Let's push it over one more. 8. There we go. And then same thing here. Let's left align. And this one we can also left align. Oh, let's get it a $sign, not a percent sign. $sign. Looks like we're going to need to push it over a couple more spots too. So let's make that 7. Okay, 6. Fine. All right, there we go. Not bad. So it's kind of a pain sitting there tweaking and guessing and counting these things up, but we don't often have to do this formatting, but every once in a while we do, and it's useful. We use the F string. We use this mini format specification to get exactly the position that we want. Okay, escape sequences is the next thing I want to show you. This is useful as well when moving format all around. So let me show you a list of escape sequences right here. This is what I mean by this is it's this /T/NR. This is how we insert a tab, new line, carriage return, form feed, single quote, double quote, an actual backslash, and then a backspace. All right, let me show you why we need these things. Let's print out a sentence. And we ran into this before for just a moment. Why don't we just type the quote character instead of using the escape sequence? Quote. Whoops, ended. There we go. Run that. Error. Why, what's going on? Well, right here, we have single quote around our text, but we've got a verb or a contraction. Do not as don't. And so it sees this single quote and it thinks that's the end of your sentence. And it says, if that's the end of your sentence, what's all this text over here? We don't see any this is invalid syntax. So, all right, well, what do? I can't just get rid of that. That's improper English. It lets me type the sentence. Well, you might say, okay, well, how about this? Just type in a single quote there. And since we can use double or single quotes, we'll put a double quote at the end of this and do it like that. Yep, that works. But there's going to be some situations where it doesn't work. So, for example, let's print out a quote. Oh, by the way, in the workaround, let's go back to this. The workaround is that we use the escape sequence for a single quote. Escape sequence means we type a backslash first and then the single quote, and then it works just fine because this backslash says, hey, hang tight, it's not actually the end of the sentence, it's just that we want to actually print the quote character. All right, so let me show you a situation where that won't work. Print, let's give a quote. Then Homer said, what's a classic Homer quote? Let's do this. So he's going to use, we want to show double quotes around his quote. So I put in double quotes. I hope I didn't brain my damage. All right. So we were wanting to print out a quote from someone with double quotes around it and a single quote on the inside. Well, because see, I got a single quote right there. So you might say, well, no problem. Just put single quotes around here and then back here at the end. That should work. No, it still doesn't work because we've got this stupid single quote right here. So this is an example of where no matter what, we're going to have to use some escape characters or sequences. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in anytime I want to actually show a single or a double quote in there. And then print that out. Oh, maybe I should spell print right. That would be a good start. There we go. So now I get it with the double and the single quotes in there. We can also use, there's several other really good ones that are useful often for printing out output. So for example, I want to print name, and then right below name, I want Homer. How do I do that? I use the, let's do the new line escape sequence. Name and then Homer. What does a carriage return do? It ignores the one above it, returns, gets rid of that one, then just shows the one below it. Let's do the backspace or the backspace. There we go. It just deletes the one behind it. Nam Homer. 2 backslashes. This actually lets you show a backslash. The tab one I use all the time. Name tab over Homer. That's a useful one too. So these are our escape sequences. Okay, cool. I think we've learned enough. Let's go back and let's fix this now and print out our output. In fact, I'm going to copy, let's just go ahead and copy this all the way down. What I want you to do is see if you can finish this output on your own. Print out a table. I want you to show me everyone's name. So print out like a name, age, height, and then print out the name, age, height of the first person, name, age, height of the second, of the third, and then at the bottom, average age, average height. See if you can print me out a table that returns back all this data we collected with the average age and average height at the bottom of the table. So pause the video and see if you can do that. All right, here's my solution. Let me show you what I got. Let me run it first of all. Oops, wrong one. Homer, age 38, height 6.1, Marge, age 38, height 5.5, Bart, 10, 3.5. And what do we got? Here we go. Name, age, height, Homer, 38, 61, 6.1, Marge, Bart, and then average. But look what I got going on here. Average is 28.6 repeated. Height is 5.033 repeated. Well, see, I use these tabs, and I tabbed over age and height. So I put those right in there. And then I added a return. And then I've got my first person with tabs between them, second person tabs, third person, and then this average. And when I put in the tab, because average was such a bigger word, it tabbed it all the way over here. Well, you know, I could get rid of that, I guess. But I'm still going to have this problem with this huge repeating decimal. Well, you know how to format that. See if you can format it. So if you were able to get yours to work already and you're done, don't worry about it. But if you're just copying mine and following along, see if you can fix this first before I show you how to fix it. All right, I'm going to assume that you tried. So here we go. I'm going to get rid of my tab. Average age. I'm going to use my string formatter. Colon. I'm going to just say, yeah, I'll leave it left aligned. And then I'm just going to say point 2F. Oh, I forgot. It's going to make me do it all over again. So let me finish everything else out first. Average height. Here's something you can do. I'm going to do dot 2F. If we don't want to have to keep entering the data every time again and again, I'm just going to add a new code block under this one so that I can calculate everything up here and then practice my output down below. Homer, 38, 6.1, Marge, 8, 5.5, Bart, 10, 10, 3.5. Okay, they're stored. Now let me come down here and print them out. All right, there we go. Age, height, that looks like it's decent. Yeah, I didn't align these things over here as pretty as I did on my other example, but we'll call that good enough. Okay, so you've made some decent progress. I'm going to move this back up here as part of this one. But you've done a good job if you've been able to follow along and learn, at least see how these formatting options work. I don't expect you to memorize all of these right now. The way I teach this class, I expect students to be able to remember what can be done and then be able to know where they need to go back in the book to find it for a homework or an exam or something like that, or Google. Really, that's how I do things. You look it up on Google until eventually you'll just remember it and you won't have to look up quite so much. But for now, what I want to do is add a couple more features in here. I want to show you how to add a little bit of color and style. So I'm not going to spend too long on this because we don't often do it, but it can be occasionally useful. So I'm going to print out, print. Let's print a sentence here. White, bold text with cyan background. Cyan's like a blue-green. Okay, my default's my black text, white background. If we want to change it, we can use these escape sequence styles, or escape styles. It uses the same first initial backslash, but then we always have after it a 033 to indicate this is going to be a style, followed by an open bracket, and then we have 3 numbers. The first number is going to indicate whether we want it normal, bold, italic, underlined. I'm going to put in 1, which means bold. Then we put in a semicolon. Then we have 2 color codes, a color code for the font and a color code for the background. And you'll never, well, maybe you'll memorize these at some point. I don't have memorized, I have to look them up. 37 is going to give us a white, 1 means bold, 37 means white text, and then cyan background's my 46. And then M indicates that code is over. But I just continue it along right here with the rest of my text. I could put a space, but then it's going to add a space here in front of that W, which is fine if you don't mind it, but you don't have to include it. So, all right, so I'll put a space at the end too, for sense of symmetry. So here's my white bold text with cyan background. Now, if you want to change back, notice what happens here. Print something else. Like it continues. You have to put in the code to make it normal again for that to stop. So in other words, I have to come in right here and say /033 colon 0, so it's no longer bold. You might not be able to tell that this is bold, but it is. Actually, let me leave it as 1 so you can see what I'm talking about. Colon, let's change it back to white, I think 30. Let's give it a shot. Or black, sorry, that's black text. And then the white background, I think, is 48. Let's give that a shot. And then after this, there we go. Okay. Oh, you know what I forgot? I printed this out because I didn't include my final character, the M, to tell it that it was done. Oh, I got one of them wrong. My background must be wrong. Let's take a look here. 48, 31. Is it 47? It gives me a gray. Well, we'll have to look up the table here. So you can see, though, that this text right here is clearly bold compared to the text up there. If I change that back to a 0, I could have sworn that was 48. Oh, I see. Maybe I have to have this normal for the 48 to work. Okay, so here's that. Let me show you a list of all of these. Not of all of them. I just printed out a few of them here and put them in the book. So different color codes for text. The background color codes are different for whatever reason. Here's my styling codes, one for bold. You can even make different kinds of font, things like that. So we don't do a lot of this, at least I don't do a lot of it, so I'm not going to spend too much more time on this. I just wanted you to see what was possible there. Okay, let's call it good for outputting results for now.